Welcome to Living the Reclaim Life podcast. I'm Denisha. We're glad you're here for conversations that revive hope, inspire healing, and encourage you to live a vibrant life with Christ. So grab a cup of coffee as we chat with today's guest. Recently, we celebrated 6 months of podcasting. And you know how some podcasts have those little bells and whistles? Well, this is a moment that I wish we had sound effects. We were just informed that we're at the top 5% of podcasts globally. And so we really want to say thank you for listening, for sharing, and for believing in the power of testimony. We aren't just sharing stories. We're sharing stories to show what God can do in someone's life and for us to see that if He can do it for them, He can do it for you. And today's episode will be no different. I've invited my friend Micaella Clay to be with us today. She also goes by Mica. So as Mica shares her story today, you are going to see the grace and the goodness of God in her life. So let's dive into my interview with Mica Clay. Mica, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And I know that your birthday is coming up next week. Tell us about that.
I'm super excited. I'm probably literally the only person in my family who gets as excited about birthdays. My son is already threatening me because his birthday is the end of August and he really does not want to celebrate in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, hey, this is my birthday month. This is my birthday week. This is my birthday day. Then it's back to my birthday week and back to my birthday month. But birthdays are super, super important to me because I don't know when my birthday is. I have a birthday from the state of Illinois, from Department of Job and Family Services, but my actual birth certificate is considered a certificate of live birth, and they don't really know when I was born. So birthdays to me are super special just because I feel like everybody should celebrate the day that God gave you to this world. And I hopped out and said, ta-da, I'm here.
So the birth date that's on your birth certificate then, that's on your certificate of live birth is not necessarily the day that you came into this world.
Correct. It is definitely not the day that I came into this world. They estimated my age. My brother and I were abandoned. And when we were abandoned, they did not know how old I was at the time. There was a lot of controversy over what my age could have been. And I kind of envision, and I know this is probably not what they did, but I envision them grabbing a calendar and a dart and just throwing it like, ta-da, there's the day. Like, I don't know.
So have birthdays with that knowledge, have birthdays been something that you've always loved, or was that hard when you found out that original information? Because now it's a full-on month-long party, it sounds like.
Literally a full-on month-long party. But I can't say that it was always been hard. I think it's always been hard in my heart to know that I don't know when my birthday is. But I think it's harder for me that other people don't want to celebrate their birthdays. I like to go above and beyond for everybody. And it just really makes me happy to celebrate. And so many people absolutely hate having a birthday party, having recognition. And I'm literally the complete polar opposite of that. So it's pretty funny but I mean, I think God made me this way because I don't have a birthday. And I'm pretty sure if they didn't have one, they might feel differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that you are a party looking for a place to happen. So if
Always.
it's your birthday, you are showing up.
Yes.
So let's go back, if you don't mind, to when you mentioned that you and your brother were abandoned. So is your brother's older than you are, and by how much?
He's a year and a half older than I am. His birthday is in March and mine is in August. So he's a year and a half older than me. My birth certificate is actually stamped in 1985. For now, we're just going to say that I'm turning 36 next week.
She's lying right now, lying.
Literally, maybe a little bit. But I came into this world bright and shining in 1979. And my brother was born in 1978.
Okay, so you guys are a year and a half apart. And so your brother's, a year and a half old, he's a toddler. And tell us about the circumstances regarding your birth.
I found out later on in life that I was actually born through an abortion. And that is why they don't know exactly when I was born. I was born at a clinic. It was believed to either be in Minnesota or Illinois. I was abandoned in Illinois. So Not 100% positive on that. But we do know that they believe that it was in evacuation. I can't talk today, but yeah, that's what they think it was. So they think that she did not know how far along she was. And when she went to the clinic to have the abortion, that is when I came out and said, ta-da, here I am. However, they do think that she panicked. And when she did, she left my brother at the clinic with me, and then took off. They don't know how long the clinic workers had me until they brought me to the hospital. They do believe that I was a little bit older. So they think that they did try to keep me for some reason or try to hide what had happened. Maybe it wasn't 100% a legal clinic. We don't know. We do think that there's a possibility it was on a migrant farm. So, those are all really just massive guesses for everybody at this point. But the certificate of live birth that I do have comes from the state of Minnesota, not from the state of Illinois, where we were abandoned. Don't know how they came up with that either, but we were placed in foster care. We could not be adopted because we didn't have anyone to sign for us to be adopted. So we stayed in foster care for quite a few years. My brother and I were in 36 homes by the time we were in school.
Wow. 36 homes in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And I know that you're really passionate about helping kids in foster care as well. And so that passion probably comes out of your own experiences in there. When 5 or 6 came around, how were you able to be adopted by your parents now?
So we believe, well, not just believe, we know that my birth mother did go back to the Department of Job and Family Services in Illinois at one time. And I kind of imagine the conversation that she had, like, hey, I dumped some kids a few years ago. And, I dumped my son really, because I do believe that she was surprised that I was alive because didn't have a name or anything like that. Didn't have a name, didn't have a birthday, but she did give them my brother's birth certificate. So that's how he has his information. And when they went to question her about me, she disappeared. But before she did, she signed the papers saying that we could be adopted. And then we were able to finally stay in a home. The parents that adopted me, I tell people all the time, and it sounds super corny and cheesy to people who just don't understand what God can do. But I tell people I was meant to be in that family. God ordained those two people to be my parents. We could not be more of a fit. And I know people that have actual birth family that don't treat them as well as my mom and dad have treated us over the years. So I know how incredibly blessed I am to have who I have in my life.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful that they were able to take both of you together as siblings.
Yes, I tell everybody it was a buy one, get one free, and he was the free one.
Oh, that's funny. Now, what is some of the work that you've done to help kids in foster care as well? I know you have such a huge heart for that.
So I've worked in a foster home actually for quite a few years. Actually work with summer camps and different things like that. Because of COVID, a lot of the things that we've done have been put on hold. So that's a little disheartening. But a lot of those kids still reach out to me. They message me on Facebook. I've watched some of them grow up, even join the military, those types of things. Foster care reform is one of the biggest things that we need in this country, other than to stop killing off our babies before they can even get into foster care. But the foster care reform, most states, when your kid turns 18 years old, they're just kind of left onto the street to fend for themselves. And the military is really kind of one of the only options that a lot of them have. And I'm not dissing the military. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And everybody, I think, should be required to join because it really does teach you discipline. But if you don't want to do that, there should be other options. And they're just not really for foster kids.
Does that tend to pan out that way as they turn 18, that they can lean back into some of those camp leaders? Or is that not the norm that happens?
Honestly, I'm going to say it's 50-50. There's still a lot of kids out there who are harboring that anger and that hurt. And they won't allow that healing to start no matter what you do. And they won't be the ones who reach back out. But then there's the other ones that get a kind of little bit of glimpse of what love and care truly is. They let down their guard long enough to see that you're real and that you're not that person who's going to hurt them. You're not that fake person. A lot of the times I could tell you when I worked in the foster home, the first thing that they yell at you is, you don't understand. And I'm like, actually, but I do.
Yeah.
I used to be you. And that made such a huge difference to those kids to know, like, oh, wait, you were in foster care? Oh, wow. And it really did change the perspective of what they were seeing coming from me as a human being. Like, oh my gosh, Miss Mica really does get it. Like she was me at one time. And so that kind of changed that dynamic for them too.
I bet that establishes a lot of trust.
It does. It definitely establishes trust, but then they could also see that you're not just somebody who could be trusted, but somebody who's genuine.
Mica, you come out of foster care, you find this amazing family, and I've had the privilege of meeting your parents even for just a moment, and seem amazing from all the things that you've said. So you end up in this amazing family, this amazing home, and then you come to be an adult. How old were you when you learned your story? I mean, obviously you knew that you were in foster care, you knew you were adopted, but how old were you when you discovered the circumstances behind your birth and realized that your birth certificate wasn't really your birth certificate and your birth date might not have really been your birth date, obviously wasn't. How old were you when that began to kind of unpack, and how did it affect you?
Well, if I tell you how old I was, it's going to give away how old I really am now. No, because I was actually 35. Somehow I just stayed that age all these years. It's so weird. But no, I actually was 35 years old when I found out that I had survived an abortion, and that, a lot of the things that I had questioned over the years is, why doesn't my birth certificate say anything on it? It literally has my name and like Ramsey County, St. Paul, Minnesota, and nothing else. And it's stamped in 1985. Like I never understood. My brother's has a time and a day and a weight, and these nurses and doctors and all these people sign this stuff, and mine doesn't have anything. And I just never understood why. And I had fought for so many years trying to get my birth records unsealed that it just took one person to be like, hey, I'm just going to off the record give you some information and talk to you a little bit about what you're wanting to know. Because the other thing is I had a lot of health issues, still have a lot of health issues. And I was terrified that my kids were going to have the same problems that I had. Are they going to have a heart condition? Is their liver going to go bad on them? These types of things. Because I have a quite an extensive health history, and I was terrified for them. And I think that fear is what led the woman who spoke to me to actually open up and say, look, your kids aren't going to get what you have. You were born prematurely. They think that you were probably born right at the end of your second trimester, the beginning of your third trimester, because your mother tried to have an abortion. And most people in those circumstances would have been devastated or angry or hurt. And I honestly was relieved. The very first time that I heard it, the first thing that I felt was relief. And it was because I knew my kids weren't going to have these issues. I knew my brother's kids weren't going to have these issues. And that really changed my heart for them. The fear was gone. And then it gave me a different perspective of looking at my birth mother and thinking, you didn't just walk away. I've been angry. I've been hurt. But most of all, I feel really bad for her. And I feel bad that she felt like the only choice that she had at that point in time was to make that decision. I'll never know really what was going on in her heart or with her at that time, but I wanted to be able to tell her, like, I forgive you. I'm not going to be able to do that, but I really wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. So as you begin to even find out, first, I just want to say, I love hearing the forgiveness in you, because you and I know each other really well. We have walked through some pretty deep waters together, girl, over the last couple of years. And I know how much you mean that those aren't just words coming out of your mouth to say that you forgive her, but I've watched you really walk out of that love and forgiveness and understanding that, she was going through something that was hard and made a decision and did the best she could at the time. And this is what happened through that. But I just want to say that I've really watched you walk out that forgiveness, and that's not easy.
And it's not. And I know that a lot of other people in my circumstance may not have been as forgiving, but I'm really good with empathy. Mm-hmm. And I tell people that all the time. Empathy and sympathy are not the same thing. You can feel sorry for somebody and still not understand, but I'm really good at putting myself in somebody else's shoes. I will never be able to 100% put myself in her shoes, but I would like to think that if it was on the other side, that she would have forgiven me. But I can't imagine what life must have been like with a 2-year-old, finding out that you're pregnant, not knowing what you were going to do about this, what type of relationship that she might have been in. I don't know. She could have been in an abusive relationship. He could have been great. We'll never know the answers to those questions, but I still think that there was a lot of fear involved just by the fact that she left the way she did. I wouldn't think that you would just run out of this place and disappear and leave everything behind if you had a solid heart and background to everything. Like, there was definitely something really troubling going on in her life.
Yeah. And there's that empathy coming out in you of putting yourself in her place and trying to figure out how she felt and what she would have been going through at the time. I just think that's really beautiful because it's not easy news to hear. And I'm so thankful for the person who let you in on the information and let you peek a little bit to find out, some of that history.
Right.
And you were mentioning a lot of health issues. And was that predominantly from you being born prematurely?
So they do believe that it was. I know that my lungs were not fully developed. That was something that we found out when I was older, just because like asthma and those type of things, a lot of people have it, but they don't know, until they really start digging in and doing the scans. So I do have a bad heart. I have asthma. I have like 4 different autoimmune disorders. So I have celiac, I have autoimmune hepatitis, I have Hashimoto's, and I have IBS, which are all autoimmune. So my immune system is pretty dang fragile. And they do think that there's a possibility they'll never 100% link it to abortion because they don't want to say it out loud. Let's face it. They don't want to give it any more power than what they think that it already has. And so I don't think that they're ever going to physically say it's because you went through an abortion. It's going to be because I was premature. It's going to be because traumatic birth, my favorite 2 words that I've heard
That's
the
in your
doctor
medical
say.
records, right?
Traumatic
birth. Yeah.
Traumatic birth is in my medical records. So nobody actually physically wants to say it, but we know where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I hear in a lot of our stories as survivors is those family secrets, where you didn't know your story until you were 35. I mean, it's been like a year, right?
Right. Literally just this year.
And, we have a lot of family secrets, I think that, and we don't have to be a survivor in order to have those, some secrets under the rug that, our families just kind of pushed away. I think that's a very normal thing. I don't think there's too many families that probably don't have some secrets. But
right.
if someone were listening and thinking, wow, and if I had found out that, or they found out maybe some news that they didn't know, that has lingered in their family for a long time, and then to find out as an adult, just give me your thoughts on that. What would you say to a friend who came to you and said, wow, I just found out this major family secret of mine that impacts my life and my kids' lives, and how do I handle that? What advice would you have for them?
In all honesty, it would have to depend on the secret and how life altering and life changing it was. Because sometimes the secrets can be a blessing. Mine was. It ended up being a blessing because I was able to find out that my son and my daughter and my nieces and nephews weren't going to have the same health issues that I had, which has always been like a really big fear for me. Some are not going to be a blessing. So it really just depends on what they brought to me. But the one thing that I feel like I would really, really want to tell them is before you get angry and before you get hurt, you have to take a minute to actually absorb this information, let it set into your heart so that you can start to feel peace and calmness before the storm, because you're going to need it. Especially if there's like a massive secret going on. I've heard about, rape and molestation and all those types of things. People around you are going to be affected too. So you have a choice whether to be their peace or whether to be their storm. You got to kind of make the right choice with that one, because everything that you do is going to affect them too.
Isn't that truth? Thank you for that. Yeah. I know the older that I've gotten, the more things have kind of unpacked from my family boxes. And it's been interesting to look at it. I think that's a great perspective. I love that you said, are you going to be their peace or their storm? That's so true. That's coming to that place of empathy and realizing that there's reasons behind everything too, that we don't always get to see.
Absolutely.
You have a very big passion for different verses in the word, like Isaiah 54:17, that says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I love that because that is my feisty friend, Mica, right there. Like, no weapon. I just see you like, no weapon formed against me will prosper. And you've lived that out. You've had a lot of health things come against you. You've had a lot of information, right, come in at times you did not expect it. And how do you live that out? How do you live out that living on the upside? Because, friend, the one thing I know about you is you are not a victim of your circumstances. And you are always a warrior and somebody who's going to persevere. So give us a little insight into that piece of Mica.
So honestly, that piece of Mica came from a really amazing deacon that I got to know over the years. Deacon Norm has been definitely a prayer warrior and part of my backbone for years. And I remember him speaking one time at one of our youth ministry things that we were doing at church. He was kind of explaining, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And in my heart, I just knew, I was like, wow, like, you're right. Like, look, I'm here. I've made it all this way. And I've had so many things come against me. And here I am, still living, still making it through. And then I started realizing, not just realizing, I mean, everybody should know where there's God, the devil's right around the corner, right? He's going to be there to knock down everything that is good, take away hope and break you into fearlessness, and doesn't want it, right? He doesn't want you to be fearless and strong. He wants you to be fearful and sad and sorrowful. And you just know with him right around the corner that when you say no weapon formed against me shall prosper, I'm saying it to him every single time, because I really feel like he's been the one right around the corner, just trying to knock me down over and over again. And I'm like, guess what, buddy? I'm right here. You might as well give up. It's not going to work. You've tried. You tried to take it through my mother. You tried to take it through my family. You've tried to take it through these attempts on my life over the years. You've tried to take it through my friends. You've done everything that you can to break me, but I'm still standing, and I'm going to continue to do that, because nothing that you can do is going to break me, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I still have God, I still have my peace, and I still have life. My other saying on the other, so that's a tattoo, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's a tattoo on my wrist. And on my other wrist, I have another tattoo, and it says pura vida. And what that means is pure life. And pure life is a way of saying, no matter what happens in your life, no matter what you're going through, that somebody else is going through something worse, so that you should still feel blessed for what you do have. And that's why both of those are so important to me. It's not just, knowing that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, but it's knowing that those weapons that have been formed are fighting against other people, and they have had it worse. I look at even the other abortion survivors out there and know how amazingly blessed I am to be whole. Even though I have the health issues that I have, there's people that are suffering way more than I am, and that will continue to suffer as this is still allowed to be done to them. I know how blessed I am to be who I am and even have a voice to speak when they can't.
I think your story has a unique way of humanizing the unborn. And all of us as survivors have that unique ability to think of how close you were to not having a voice, and yet you do. And that's so just amazing. You and I, a couple of weeks ago, got to sit in Schulenburg, Texas. I forgot the two, Nancy was telling me the two cities that it's between. You remember that? It's like it's a small place, but it was amazing. So
literally the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
That's what she's trying to say.
Which is kind of exactly, I think, what we all needed. So Mica and I met through the Abortion Survivors Network, and got to do, the first thing we did was we went through and kind of locked arms and went through Melissa's healing curriculum, which is
Yes.
intense. Those are some deep waters that we dove into. And sometimes I did not want to dive into them. And I think all of us you were a good accountability. We got to walk through that. And I'm telling you, I'm so grateful for those times of crying on the phone together and just opening up those places. I'm a huge believer in you have to feel it to heal it. And so as we walked through, we had to acknowledge and embrace our stories, and we came out of it in a really beautiful place and super good friends. As we went to Schulenburg together, and we were in a room with 17 survivors. Each of us, as you can hear, if you've been listening to the podcast this month, each week we have a different one of my friends on who have survived an abortion. And everybody's story is so different. Yet, I don't know about you, but me sitting in that room, I felt like we all just met for the first time. And there's 17 of us, each with different stories, each an absolute miracle. And as I looked around the room, it was like we had so much in common, even though we were strangers. And that was my moment of aha. How did you experience being at retreat and sitting in there with 17 people, getting to know them? Mica was also our photographer. So all of the pictures that you're seeing on LifeSite News, and gosh, they're all over. Every time I open up one of my emails of a pro-life thing, I'm like, oh, there we are. Wow, that's kind of crazy. And so Mica was our brilliant photographer behind the retreat. But how did you experience it personally?
So I can say for me, one of the hardest things in my life has been being adopted. I am really close with a few family members on my dad's side and literally no one on my mom's side. And then I have my brother and my nieces and nephews and my kids, but my story kind of always felt like it was so uninclusive. I never fit in. And it was so hard for me growing up, going through school, going through life without fitting in. One of the hardest things actually to do in my whole entire life is to be around my husband's family, because they literally all look alike. They act alike. They sound alike. It's crazy how similar they are to each other. And that is a big trigger for me. So that being said, it was literally the first time in my life where I was able to sit in a room and not feel like I stood out, not feel like I didn't belong, which is funny because the name of the retreat was You Belong, but without the corniness in there, like of saying it, I really did feel like I belonged. And I can honestly say in the 35 years of my life that I've never, ever felt like I belonged anywhere until that day.
Makes me want to cry.
Don't you do it, woman. If you cry, I'm going to cry and everybody's going to be crying. No. But I truly, truly mean that. And I think a lot of people have to remember that though we all have such different stories, we all do have that same heart deep inside us of not belonging, of not feeling like we were meant to be here. When you started your life knowing that somebody was already trying to get rid of you before you even made it into this world, it's a hard thing to deal with and a hard thing to handle. And then to know that, especially in my case and in the case of other people, that you weren't just left there, you were left again and again and again, and you weren't chosen. It's amazing to know that eventually I was chosen. I was chosen by God. I was chosen to live. I was chosen to be somebody that I didn't expect myself to be. And I got to sit in a room full of 16 other people who were literally just like me, who have had those same hurts and those same pains of feeling like they didn't belong somewhere.
It's not true. And as we've gone through the healing curriculum, there's been so many survivors that says, I felt like I was looking into my life, or I felt like I was outside of my family looking in. Even I've heard survivors say that, even who were raised by their biological families. And I experienced that. Like I felt like I was outside of my family, yet I was in, and, I was kind of an only child because my sister was 18 years older than me. But yeah, that feeling of belonging was so powerful for me as well. And I think many of us, that was a weekend to remember for sure. And we made history because there has never been 17 abortion survivors in the same place at the same time, getting healing and equipping and look out, right?
Right.
It feels like a sacred time to me.
It's not just a sacred time to me, but there's power in what's going on. There's power in what's happening in our lives. And I think the more that we come together, the harder it's going to be for people to deny that we exist. They're starting to see us, they're starting to hear us, and they know that there is a voice to those little voiceless faces that have been out there all these years. And thank God for social media nowadays, because it's spreading and people are really starting to see who we are. And there's a lot of people going, wait, you're a what?
Mm-hmm.
How does that even happen? So we're going to have the good, the bad, and the ugly. But again, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. So we're going to fight against everybody who brings that negativity. But the one thing to remember about every single one of us that I did see is we were all so full of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There wasn't one person in that room that didn't have so much love to offer to the person sitting next to them.
Isn't that true? And so much love as they talked about their mom, their dad. I mean, that was something that just blew my mind. You know, we could sit in a room, be real bitter together. And that was not at all what you experienced. It wasn't. It was all the grace of God that was so evident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mica, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate you and our friendship and appreciate you just sharing a little bit about you and a little bit about your story. Is there anything that you would like to say as we conclude today?
There's so many times in life that I think you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to feel like you don't belong in this world, whether it's because you're adopted or you're an abortion survivor, or you don't even know why you feel this way. Maybe you feel like you stick out in your family. Maybe you feel like you don't belong in this world for whatever reason. You've been raped, you've been molested, you've been abused, you are in a bad relationship, whatever it be. What you have to remember is that you are chosen. You are loved, and that there's somebody out there who wants you to be alive, whether it be us, whether it be God, a family member or a friend. You know, we talked about the fact that you never know whose life you're going to change. That smile on your face could be your purpose of living. Don't negate the fact that you have a purpose in this life. Just don't stop. We are here. I'm here. So if you're listening and you feel like I'm not serious, grab Denisha's number, ask her what mine is. I'm here to talk to you 24/7. Not a problem for me, 100%. Because I don't ever want to leave this world feeling like there's anybody who's ever come into contact with me who doesn't know that they are loved.
And I feel and have always felt like I was very loved by you from day one when we were total strangers over a Zoom call. So Mica, you just launched and took a very brave step after retreat, and you launched a Facebook page that you've been talking about for a while. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. But what is it called so everybody can find you on there as well?
So that is Gabriel's Army. I named it after Gabriel, the archangel, who is a messenger of God. Gabriel had a lot of different cloaks that he wore. Gabriel is an angel messenger. And that's what we really are trying to do. We're trying to send that message to people, that we're here, that we did survive, that we do belong, and that you are loved. So that's where you would find me. It's under Gabriel's Army, but Micaella Clay is right after that. So Denisha can put that in her notes because you're never going to be able to spell it without it.
At least they're not trying your middle name.
Oh my goodness. Let's not go there. We don't have a long enough show, dear.
That is very true.
But yeah, for sure. Just take away from everything that there are people out here who want to hear from you, and that you are not insignificant in this world. You do have a purpose and you were chosen. Just because you don't know what it is doesn't make it any less important.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening. I pray you found hope in today's conversation and maybe even feel a little less alone in your story. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story. Want to learn more about living a reclaimed life and how you can be a part of our growing community of reclaimers? Check out our website at reclaimedstory.com. All of those links and more will be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this inspirational podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. That is a huge help in helping us reach more people to live the reclaimed life. Thank you so much for listening.